The next day, we were all mortified by the news. First Overhaul, then the League of Villains, and now the Sinister Six. Everyone was afraid, but no one was more terrified than me. The people that had killed my father had now tripled their numbers. All of my enemies had grouped together. Each one of them were a formidable foe by themselves, but as a group, could they even be stopped? I was starting to panic with every second that went by that I thought about it. Sue and I ate breakfast together, with Kaminari and Koda in the background. She could tell I wasn't myself. "Are you alright? You're really quiet, Carol," she asked, looking at me a little worried. I put on a fake smile and nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine, don't worry." She didn't stop worrying and persisted. "What's wrong?" I stopped with the fake smile and sighed, staring down into my bowl of cereal. I'm honestly scared of those villains. I've fought them each individually, and they're all super strong. Well, I haven't seen what Yudo can do. But I've been beaten by Kirakiri. Amaraito nearly beat me. I didn't even properly fight Kao and she got away from me. What am I going to do if they come after me? Or you? Or anyone at the dorms? If they killed my dad, I'm obviously the target. And that means it's my fault if you get hurt. She put her hand on my arm and was about to say something, opening her mouth to speak, before Kaminari piped up. "Hey, don't worry about us. If they even thought about coming here, we'd beat them up real good. And if that Bone Girl gives us trouble, we can throw Mineta at her." He grinned and gave me a thumbs up, and it did get a little chuckle out of me. "Mineta probably would be good to defuse KO if we ever fought." After making sure no one else was going to interrupt, Sue reaffirmed what Kaminari said. "Kaminari is right. If they come to UA campus, they'd be overwhelmed with numbers. There's no way they could beat all the pro heroes, and us too." I ran my fingers through my hair and groaned. I know. Realistically, they have no chance, but I'm just a warrior by nature. I'm overly cautious, always thinking the worst things will happen. That's not always a bad thing, Carol. You'd probably make a good leader with that sort of mentality. You'd keep everyone safe, she replied, trying to bring my mind from the topic to something more positive. I was still anxious at heart, but I smiled a bit more genuinely. I looked up at her, and she smiled back at me, squeezing my arm. We went back to eating, and were finished pretty soon. Since it was a Sunday, we didn't have much we needed to do. The raid gang were obviously taking a day off after what happened the previous day. The thing that was most frightening was the fact that the people that took Overhaul's hands were beaten and humiliated. And Overhaul was a force to be reckoned with himself. The Sinister Six were truly something to be afraid of. At the time, that's what I assumed their motive was, to strike fear into people. But then I thought it may have been to appease Kirakiri. Sue and I went up to my room and just relaxed for a while. Well, she relaxed. I did some weightlifting. She read a book, and we talked about a few things in between. After a while of her glancing up at me and not saying much, she got out her phone and started looking something up. About 10 minutes later, she stood on her feet. "Alex-Jen, you don't have anything planned for today, right?" she asked. I stopped lifting for a moment and looked up at her, shaking my head. "Not really, no. Why?" "Let's go out. We haven't had time for another date for so long, and I have the perfect spot in mind for us. You'll really like it, Carol," she said quite excitedly. Curious, I asked her what it was we would be doing as I started to get ready. She stuck her tongue out at me and wagged her finger in front of her face. "I'm not saying anything. You'll have to wait and see. It'll only take about 40 minutes by bus." 40 minutes? Where on earth was she taking me? And on such short notice, too. I wasn't the sort of person to make decisions like that on impulse, and neither was she, but she seemed really confident. I put my shoes on and grabbed my things, and she grabbed my hand, almost jogging out of the room and dragging me with her. "We just about have enough time to make it if we hurry," she said, as I made sure to keep up with her. We said goodbye to a few of our classmates, who we quickly passed by, and left the grounds. We got to a bus stop, and as our bus came, she put her hand over my eyes. "What are you doing?" I asked, a little weirded out by the sudden action. "I know you. If you see the bus number, you'll look it up and figure out what we're doing, Carol. No ruining the surprise." Bah, she knew me too well. I was dying with anticipation as we boarded the bus and we paid for a fare. We were to go to the end of the route. I was getting more and more curious with every minute that passed. We sat around the back of the second story of the bus. Public transport was much more reliable here than in Ireland, that's for sure. When we sat down, with me near the window and her beside me, she leaned her head on me. She smiled and closed her eyes briefly before looking out the window. You're definitely doing a good job distracting me if that's what you're trying to do. I haven't got a clue where you're taking me. Am I going to wake up without my kidneys or something? I asked her jokingly. No, silly, we're doing something you really like. Sex? She slapped my arm and I chuckled before she replied. We'll be in a public space, so absolutely not. Although, I did get us a private spot. I was just getting more and more confused with the vague hints she was giving me. She rented something out, that was for sure. Do you think we're going to be doing the school festival this year? I asked her. She thought for a while, her finger on her chin as she rested on my arm, before eventually nodding a little. Probably. I don't think anyone would be happy if they didn't do it, Carol. But then, on the other hand, if they do go through with it and throw the festival, there will be an outrage that no one is taking things seriously. So, I don't know. I sighed. That's what I'm thinking too. There's no doubt about it. If we go through with it, someone will try to attack us. Whether it's the League, or the Six, or even someone else. I was looking out the window, a rather despondent expression on my face. She gently pulled my face toward her and kissed me on the lips lovingly. The point of us taking this little trip is to help you relax and take your mind off things, not to worry more. Stop thinking, she said to me sternly. Miss Ryuko would be disappointed if she saw you losing control of your thoughts again. She was right. I needed to get a hold of myself. I hadn't even made any progress on transforming in the months it had been since we did the internship. I nodded and closed my eyes. I'll give it a shot. Tell me when we get there. I almost drifted off rather than meditating, and jolted upright when she shook my arm gently. We're about to pull up to our stop, she said with a big grin on her face. It looked like a normal town for a while, with a mountain in the distance. Our bus came to a stop, and again she almost frantically dragged me off the bus and in a specific direction. I'm still lost. Can you tell me what we're doing yet? I said to her, as we hurried through the crowds. No, we're almost there, girl. Be patient. We went up a pathway to a hotel. It didn't seem like a love hotel, which was mildly disappointing, but when we made our way inside, she spoke to the receptionist, seeming to have already made reservations for something. Everything was very nicely decorated. I'd never actually stayed in a Japanese hotel of this quality before, which just made me dread what the price of whatever it was that Sue had booked for us. She brought me down a wooden pathway outside up a stony area, where the mountain was much closer to us. We were making our way up a hill, and I saw a cave at the end of it. On the way were 2 tunnels for us, and I could feel the area getting a little warmer. We stopped outside the cave entrance and looked over the whole city. She turned to face me and hugged me. I wanted us to have a 3rd date, finally. And you've been stressing out a lot, so what better option than to go to one of the best hot springs in Japan? Hot springs? I know you really like hot springs since our trip to the forest lodge with the wild pussycats, and I was just so able to get us a private reservation for an hour earlier today in your room. We've been together almost 6 months now, I guess, if we're counting from when we first confessed and went on our first date. So, happy 6 months, Carol. I stood there, flabbergasted. I had no idea what to say. She thought of all this in, 10 minutes? She did this all on her phone, just going off what I told her about how I enjoyed the hot springs. How much did this all cost, was all I could think to ask. She put a finger on my lips and shook her head. Don't worry about that. Oh, also, they don't allow swimwear, unlike some other places. She winked at me, though I was still too shocked over how amazing she was. She was simply just amazing. There's no other way to describe it. You did all this for me? Just because I'm seriously paranoid about something that's not even going to happen? I asked her, astounded. She smiled at me. Of course, I love you, and I want you to be happy. We might not always have time to do something like this either, so why not take the opportunity? I'd heated up a little and smiled widely and hugged her tightly, kissing her. I love you too. You're so perfect. She blushed a little and hugged back. Let's go more in the hot springs. We gotta take our clothes off to go in first, though. She giggled a little as she pulled away and walked towards the hot springs, gesturing to me alluringly to follow her as she started to get undressed. That just shows how she put even more thought into specifically where she picked for us to go. She could have booked any hot springs. Half of them would have been way cheaper. But she picked this one because it was private. She knew I didn't like public nudity. Every part of the trip was so carefully thought out. It was like a dream. I eagerly got undressed and stepped into the springs with her. The fact it was inside a cave was really unique and interesting, which made the experience even more special. As soon as we were both in and settled, we cuddled for a while and just enjoyed our time together. And for any of you perverts out there, I'm looking at you, Minetta. No, we didn't do anything naughty in the hot springs. They have hygiene standards, you know. For the first time in a while, I legitimately just lay back and relaxed, completely carefree. I didn't once think about the Six, the League, nothing bad. I was actually happy, and I had an amazing day with the girl I loved. Sadly, it was only for an hour, however, so when the time came, we had to get out and dry ourselves off before getting dressed and leaving. I stretched and put my arm around Sue. Thank you, love. That was really nice. I had a great time. Well, I suppose any time seeing you without clothes is great. Don't ruin it. Have you been spending too much time with Minetta and Kaminari? I laughed a little and she smiled at me. She was happy to see me happy. That's all that mattered to her. That's one of the things that made me fall for her. On the way out, she thanked the receptionist and we made our way back to the bus stop. It would almost be evening by the time we got back, so decided not to hang around this time. We gotta come here again sometime in the future, but next time, I'm paying. She nodded, and pretty shortly after, our bus came and we made our way home. My spirits had definitely been lifted, and I felt rejuvenated and uplifted. We spent the journey back huddled up together, talking about random things. I don't even remember what we talked about. It was just various little things that made us that small bit closer. It was pretty quiet at the dorms when we got back, everyone either studying, training, or recovering from almost being beaten to death. Sue and I went back to my room and ordered pizza. How could this day get any better? We hung out, watched a couple of movies, ate, and by the time all was said and done, it was time to go to sleep. Our day trip to Hakone was over. I wrapped my arms around Sue from behind and fell asleep with a smile on my face. What had started off a worrisome day had turned out to be fantastic, all because of her. She brightened up my world. But good things can't last forever. Next morning was Monday, back to classes. Yay! Oh well, at least we didn't have any more stupid villains or raids to worry about for now. After going to class, we found out that after much heated discussion, the festival had been greenlit to be held. We were still going through with it, despite... I stopped myself there and then. Sue had spent time and money to help me to relax and take my mind off that, so I was going to be damned if I thought about those people again. So instead of thinking negatively, I just thought of Sue and Hot Springs. Easy fix for one problem, started a whole other one which is difficult to deal with in public. When Mr. Aizawa finished explaining everything to us, from the beefed up security to the fact we had to come up with things to do as a class, he left us to our devices. Games are fun. Everyone likes games, I suggested. Mina agreed, as well as a few others. However, we ultimately agreed on doing some dopey stage thing, music and some crap. I was not at all interested. I sincerely hoped I'd be put backstage for the effects department or something. In the dorms, I actually suggested that to them. Hey, so, I'm pretty good with managing lighting and effects, I said, trying to get out of doing anything on the front lines. Mina excitedly asked, Alex-chan, can you play any instruments? I sighed. Not really. I like the piano, but that's it. I don't really even know how to play. You should totally go for it. Jiro can teach you, she exclaimed ecstatically, to which Jiro shrugged and reluctantly agreed to do. I face-palmed. My plans to avoid being seen by anyone or performing in any way completely and utterly being smashed. After groaning internally and dying a little inside, I forced